Welcome, everyone. We are here with Ruthie Renee, and she is a certified clinical hypnotherapist.
Yeah.
And she's going to talk to us today about trauma and about self-love. So, Ruthie, first tell us, sorry about all those distractions at first. We're so excited to have Ruthie here today. Everything that I am doing in Dating Olympics and in thriving singles community, it started with my understanding that I have about these our perspectives in life that stop us. And when I started learning all that concept and learning how to tap into those thoughts and free myself from these debilitating things, it changed my life, and it was so easy. It wasn't something, and when I was in a place of the stress and depression and the fears I was having, it didn't feel like it was going to be an easy feat. But I learned that it was just my thoughts, and being able to understand those and change them was life-changing for me. And Ruthie does this with her clients, and she's going to talk to us about that and talk to us about trauma, everything that comes out of Ruthie's mouth. I'm just excited because it's all the stuff that we teach. We want people to learn self-love more than anything. If no one gets anything else out of any of my courses, I want you to know, I want you to come out with a strong, healthy self-love. So Ruthie helps her clients with that. So welcome, Ruthie, and everyone else on the call. Go ahead, and would you tell us a little bit about first why you're doing this, and then you can explain more about what it is. What brought you to doing this?
Wow. Okay. So thank you so much for having me. I am really excited to be here, and I have loved chatting with you and learning, and I love what you're doing for singles. I am divorced myself and in a new life. That it's what it feels like, a whole new world. And I can't imagine where I would be at had this happened 15 years ago, the first time I wanted to get divorced, and it didn't work out, and we made some great changes and actually had a really thriving marriage for a long time. However, if I had separated at that time in my state of mind, it would have been no fun at all. and the thought of moving into life and meeting people and with my backpack full of all of my baggage and all of my skeletons in the closet that I just kept closed and all of those things, it would just be daunting. So I love what you're doing here, helping people prepare their minds so that they can be ready to meet Mr. Right or Mrs. Right, Miss, because you want her to. What brought me here to hypnotherapy is a succession of things. Basically, I think most people in the line of mental health are either start out investigating or learning things for themselves or for family members. And I am here for both. I started, I told people to get tissues and I didn't myself, but I was 9 years old the first time I tried to commit suicide. And luckily I wasn't very good at it. But that was my life and the way I saw, let me rephrase that. That's how I saw my life. Now I see it very differently, and I had a beautiful childhood. I just, it's hard to see your body is so healthy when your arm is broken, right? All you see is that broken arm. So I had enough broken, what I felt like were broken pieces that led me to start thinking, I need help. I need to fix me. And of course, now I know I was never broken, but these things come into our lives for exactly the right reasons to put us on the path where we are. And my path was started learning coaching. I read all the psychology books I could get my hands on because I didn't have the funds to commit myself. I did see a therapist and he was very helpful. I saw another therapist that was not helpful at all. And I've worked with coaches that were amazing and worked with coaches that were not helpful at all. And, that's just the same in any practice, I believe. But each step brought me closer to finding more and more pieces that fit in this puzzle of healthy mental state. It was a seminar that I went to, 3 Key Elements, where I learned about the reticular activating system. If you guys don't know, I'm going to get into it a little bit in a minute, but it's also called our critical factor filter. There's a whole bunch of names for it, but the bottom line is your brain's bouncer. And that was an explosion for me to realize why I wanted to be here and couldn't get there, because I had all these programs, from most of them before I was 10, when that filter gets pretty solid. And that's when I decided to learn more. Lots of coaching tips and methods and programs were really helpful for me if I could wrap my head around it cognitively. Now, there's something called the Amygdala Hijack, where you have your primal brain, it gets programmed for safety. It's so smart. Our brilliant minds and bodies are just like, we've got it together. We just have to learn it. So when that amygdala hijack pops up, you can't reason through anything. You just have to hopefully know that you need to breathe or have somebody to talk you off the fence or whatever. And that was the thing I wanted to get rid of. It started with dental trauma, and I had an extremely embarrassing experience where I woke up holding the dentist's hand, crying for my dead mother and wanting my teddy bear at like 35. So that made me decide I have got to get into my subconscious mind and fix this stuff. And here I am with hypnotherapy. And now I love working with clients one-on-one. It's so fun to see the breakthroughs and see where things came from. It's always a surprise. But now what I do mostly is teach larger groups and classes on self-hypnosis. So it's the give a man a fish, he feeds for eat for a day, teach a man to fish, and he'll always be able to live, or however that goes. So that's my focus now.
So, and that's what we're so excited to hear about, is how we can do this ourselves. First of all, I think it would be important to, we can talk about trauma. It's
the feelings and the experiences, the physical reactions that we get from a traumatic experience. Traumatic experience for one person is different than another person.
Something that you don't expect. An example might be adoption. A baby that is adopted into a loving, caring family, many people would think that that's not traumatic. But to many who are adopted, that baby is traumatized from being taken from their birth mom, and it's a traumatic experience, and it can affect their whole lives. So that might be an example. Maybe something that's
also for toddlers. New baby brother or sister, and you think this is a happy experience, and one little kid takes that role very seriously, and they love and nurture, and this is my baby, and another one will try to kill the baby because on their space. So that can be trauma is different for each person.
I think it might be relative.
Yes, very relative. And a lot of people, there are a lot of terms that we get trigger words that bounce around society from one thing to the next. Like, have you ever noticed that you say like a lot more this last decade than the previous 4 decades or 3 decades or whatever, however old you are? So there are trigger words, and trauma is something we see a lot of in social media now, and getting through trauma. And the last year and a half has been traumatic for many, many people. I strangely have been excited because I feel like 2020, we wanted perfect vision.
Yeah.
We don't get gifted things like that. We
Oh.
get gifted experience to give us what we're looking for. So we have this massive global experience to really show us who we are, show us how very clearly how we are going to react, show up as in a traumatizing event or sequence like that. We call it in the hypnotherapy world a sensitizing event. Trauma is a sensitizing event that you then carry with you in flavors, or it snowballs and it flavors your life. So when we're frustrated because we keep dating the same fill in the blank guy and you don't want to, but that's what you're attracting, it's because of something way back in your past, a rule, a story, a program that you decided. And to get rid of that, there are lots of ways you can do. You can do the repetition, you can do all kinds of fun things, but getting into a hypnotic state is the fastest and easiest way to change your mind like that.
So good.
My goal as a hypnotherapist is to not see you after 4 to 6 visits, because you've got it and you can, sometimes every so once in a while, I'll get a message from a past client. It's like, I'm just really stuck right here. I need your insight. And that's fine. That's perfect. But my goal is to see and help as many people as possible and to help yourself. So I love the teaching aspect. And a huge part, I love that right here in your group, you're talking about self-love, because that core value is really so foundational and pivotal for every other relationship in your life.
Yes.
That's relationships with the opposite sex or same sex, if that's what you desire, your relationship with money, relationship with time, relationship with God, relationship with your body. It all comes back to your relationship with yourself, right?
Yes. Thank you for bringing that up, because that is the whole purpose of this call. And that's why I was so excited, because it starts with our self-love. And I think a lot of the ways that we feel like we're not good enough, or we're not going to reach the dream or goal that we have, whatever these messages that we are telling ourselves, they can be changed so easily. And it's in the self-love for sure. But how do you get there? If you have all these messages in your mind and your thoughts and your heart, that's telling you that subconsciously these things we're hearing and telling ourselves, and the voice that's in our head all the time telling us these things. I've heard you say a 4-year-old or 5-year-old person, that you have. Anyway, so talk about a little bit about that, where we come up with these things. And anyway.
Sure. Well, there are a couple things that I want to touch on that you said. First, that it's so easy once you know how to do it. And I love that you see it that way. There are lots of people that see it that it's so hard to get down, to let go. I saw a quote on Facebook that was, holding on is the easy part, letting go is so hard.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I guess I would have been that way 20 years ago. But now, especially dealing with nutrition, I know that Jennifer works with nutrition as well. Our physical being is damaged when we hold on to things that don't belong there.
Yeah.
It is hard on our relationships. It's hard on our life. It's hard on everything when we hold on to things, because it weighs us down. We have that backpack full of stuff, and it's hard for any to get forward movement. Letting go is easy once you know how to do it. And so I'm glad that you see it that way. The other thing is the when you mentioned that 4-year-old voice, have you guys ever either with yourself or partner or a child or business, anywhere, you're talking to an adult, okay? And all of a sudden they turn into a child. And you're like, can we get out of high school? Like, had a client that would act very selfish in, even when her children, her 2-year-old would want to share, hey, can I have a bite? And she would snap back, nope, it's mine, get your own. And it seemed like, you're 40 years old, you can't. And she would blame it on germs to make herself feel okay with this way of being. After a hypnotherapy session, we found out, we traced it back to when she was a 3 or 4-year-old, and her little sister took her doll without asking, lost the prize shoe, and instead of getting help from her mother, she got shut down and shamed for being angry and not sharing. And so she showed up as a 4-year-old, quite literally, when she needed to share, because she felt this turmoil of, I don't want to, this is mine, this is my space. You're taking, stealing, all of the thoughts, and then the shame wrapped around it. So there's all of these little things, and it domino effects into the rest of our lives. So we absolutely show up as 4-year-olds, as 16-year-olds, as wherever that sensitizing event happened, until we go make it right. We fix the lie and we let it go, and all of that fun stuff.
So can you tell us how do we do that?
Well, some of them we know. I think probably everybody, if I asked you to think of the most devastating thing that happened to you in your life, everybody has it, right? Yeah. So some of them are there, and you haven't either had the skills or been brave enough or whatever to look at that one painful thing and find the anchors or the hooks that they still have in us. Because if you had corrected everything around that, it wouldn't bother you anymore. Yeah. All of these traumas, these sensitizing events, it's just data. It happens. We are the ones that make it what it is. Pain is absolutely unavoidable in this life. We're gonna come up with pain every day, even. But the suffering, that's our choice.
Yes.
And so I'm going to share my screen so I can just walk you guys through this a little bit.
Yeah.
And okay, so in case anybody wants to follow me or hear more, Quantum Field Trips is my business page on Facebook. And what we want to do is unlock the power of your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind is already powerful. It leads the majority of what you do. Even the way you're thinking, the way you're listening to me right now is flavored from your subconscious mind. This is me. We already talked about that. I do love teaching. So if anybody has a group they want me to speak with, I'm happy to be there. Hypnosis, I'm going to touch on hypnosis itself before we go into self-hypnosis. Oh, golly, let me share it so it's big, especially for you guys that have phones. Okay.
Let me ask you this, Ruthie, before you keep going, or just bring up this. If anyone has any questions, you can throw it in the chat. I can keep an eye on those questions, and then I can bring those questions up to her, because everyone is on mute just for the sake of managing distractions. But if you have a question, feel free to chat. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we'll take some time in the end if anybody has any questions. We can do that. So hypnosis is just an easy, natural state of mind. We're in it all the time, all day long. In fact, some people live in a state of hypnosis. We call them zombies, and you've seen them at Walmart. I guarantee it. You've also seen it on your children's faces when they're watching TV.
Yeah.
Or your teenagers when they're scrolling. And that's the same face that you have when you're scrolling, by the way. It's a hypnotic state. Maybe more than 50% of what I do is de-hypnotizing. Because we live in such an age where we're bombarded with information. And marketers know exactly how to get into your subconscious mind. They're very skilled at hypnosis. They just don't call it that. And so when you're watching TV, well, quite literally, it's called programming, right?
Yeah.
So where it's programming your mind. Hypnosis is just a deep, relaxed state of mind. That's it. We use this deep, relaxed state of mind to get into the brain. So, oh, my little guy isn't showing up. Okay, so see those beautiful lines? Pretend I can go over them with my cursor.
I can do this. You should be able to. Let's see.
I know. I just
it's okay. I can do this though.
I can lead
you
with
see
my
cursor. I don't know if they can.
I don't. But the lines represent neural pathways. We now know. We used to think once you learn things, once you're old, you can't teach an dog old new tricks. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. That's how it goes. Right? We've all heard that. We know now that is out the window. We can learn up until the day we die. Our brains are very plastic. The neurons, I keep trying to do all the little dots around the edges. These are the brain cells, the neurons that want connection. So we make these roadways, and every roadway is a thought or an event. And we can let it go and not even think about it again. And eventually it will disappear because we only have so much space in our brain. And so if you really didn't care about your the person that was sitting 2 seats behind you in the second grade, that's most likely gone. It's okay that that roadway is not important. You clear it off the desk in your mind. However, if you have trauma or a sensitizing event that you keep looping, you keep thinking about, that roadway is getting thicker and thicker and reprinting every time. The reason they have dementia and Alzheimer's patients, the reason they go back, regress to childhood memories or significant events is because there are so many copies of them in the brain. And so knowing this, we literally can go in and make those roadways thicker, the ones we want, the ones that are helpful. I love myself. I love to wake up at 5 a.m. every morning. All of those suggestions, all of the things that we choose to believe, we can make thicker, and we can dissolve the ones that aren't helpful for us anymore. How it works. We have our brain, we have our mind, we have our subconscious mind, we have our conscious mind. Everybody's looking at me right now. See my hand? See the wrinkles on my hand? If you look very close, you'll see that I have a double lifeline. See right here, there's 2 lines. Now, if you look at your hand, you most likely only have 1 line right there. That's called a double lifeline. Now, when you look at that and you think about it critically, you're in your conscious mind, you're learning, you're focused, you can move quickly. Now, when you go into your subconscious mind, that's where your memories are. That's where your automation is. That's why you can be driving to the grocery store and end up at work, because you've driven that path so many times. It's automatic.
Yeah.
So these subconscious things are so important because we don't want to have to think about breathing. We don't want to have to think about that there's, oh my gosh, there's something on my foot. There's something on my foot. There's something on my, it's just a sock. We've been wearing them all our lives. It's okay. So this filter, the line that says belief filter, that's the reticular activating system or the critical factor filter. That's your brain's bouncer. That is the part of our brain that's an actual physical thing about the size of your pinky. It determines what is going to be brought to our conscious mind. We don't think about the socks on our feet after we put them on because we don't need to. We need that brain space for other things. So that filters out what we want to think about and what we don't. It's wonderful program. Thank you, Jesus, for putting that in there. However, if you're trying to get something into your head, like, I am worthy of love, the thought goes in. See the arrow? I am worthy of love. It goes in. But if we have somewhere in our subconscious mind a sensitizing event or events that tell us otherwise, we bounce it out.
Wow.
Have you ever, you guys, I'm sure everybody has heard about affirmations and the power of affirmations. And you stand like Wonder Woman or Superman and you say great things about yourself in the mirror. And how many of us have looked at ourselves and said, that's BS. I'm lying. And then that doesn't feel good, right? We don't want to be liars, but it's bouncing out. Sheri, I couldn't help but notice that, and since you're the only one everybody can see but me, I'm going to use you as a as a model. I couldn't help but notice we wore the same color today, or just about. It's so nice. But if I look at you and I'm just having a conversation, and all of a sudden I was like, wow, Sheri, that leather top is something else. Okay, does everybody see what happened on her face?
Oh.
It's a little bit of a like, what? Then a laugh.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, I'm not wearing a leather shirt, for one thing.
No, not at all. And it's easy for you you learned your colors in grade school. You learned about fabric. It's an easy lie. You just bounce. It's comical. Have you ever had somebody that, or children, I love when children think they're going to hurt us and they say something. I had one boy that rode the bus with my children, and he called my son Peanut Butter Jelly Boy. And he just laughed at it. It was like, oh, okay, because he took peanut butter and honey actually to school. But my other son, it really bothered. For some reason, he felt like that was mean. But if it's not true, you bounce it out.
Yeah.
Now, if I said, I don't know what your core issues or sadnesses or any triggers that you have, but if I said, Sheri, you're a terrible mother.
Yeah, that would bounce out just like the other one. Which if there was a time, yes. I'm glad you're bringing this up. This is so good, because we do this. We want to have these affirmations, and we push them out, and we say this is not comfortable. It's not true, but so then how do we know if it's these filters that are pushing it out, if it's really not true? Like, if we really I think we would consciously know certain things really are true, but I don't know.
Well, you would think.
How do you determine?
We have so many facts now that we never knew before, because we're evolving as a species. We're learning new things. We know now that we have to wash our hands before we perform surgery.
Yeah.
Probably a good idea before we eat. And even now we wash our hands 1,000 times a day before we even look at anybody. Yeah. So, but before, that would have been laughable. Yeah. It just wouldn't have been true, because they're invisible. Nobody knows that that's real. So as we evolve, then we learn new things, and that's where it gets tricky. We have learned facts all along the way. Are we willing to question those? Are we willing to soften that belief filter and see things clearly? Because I can tell you, your higher self, your soul, knows exactly what pure truth is and what isn't. So we get into a hypnotic state where we're safe. That's number one key. You have to feel safe to get in a relaxed state. People that go up on stage shows, hypnotist shows, and they're so easily hypnotized, and they dance and they quack like a duck and whatever they do, and then they're fine later. They are just naturally somnambulistic is the technical term, but it's easy to get into that hypnotic state and and they feel comfortable. If you have trust issues, it's not going to work for you. And that's okay. But so a big part of hypnosis is getting into that deep relaxed state and finding a guide or yourself, who's some people aren't comfortable with themselves. That's me, the first thing to work on.
Yeah.
So that you can look at it. It's this interesting place where you're dissolving that filter, where your conscious mind can look at your subconscious mind and see each other and make things happen. So to get through, there are different things that you can do. Repetition is one. If you tell a child something long enough, they're going to eventually believe it. And that also works with adults too, for the better or the worse. Yeah. Right? So, words have so much power and meaning. We need to be very careful when we use them. Other ways to get through: music. When we're doing affirmations, how many people put on that epic or soothing meditative music? Music helps soften it. Another reason why a lot of religious leaders will say, don't listen to bad music. It's literally getting in your head. Yeah. I remember my 12-year-old, I think he was 12 at the time. He would listen to Radiohead, and he had no problems in his life. He had such a great life, but he listened to Radiohead all of a sudden, and he was depressed all the time. And he wanted to make connections with his life, how he could feel that song. It speaks to me. He made it up. He made up stories so it could be real because it got in there. So we want to know the difference. When to be conscious and fully forward so that we can't be duped. So we're not gullible. We're not that somnambulistic when it's not helpful for us. And also able to drop the wall. You guys know about those walls, right? We all have the walls we put up. We go on a date and my safety goes up. And so nothing can get through. Yeah, but we want to be able to be in a place with people that we know are safe to drop those walls, because that's when the connection really gets in. So, I don't want to go there.
That's a good image to describe it.
So this is the basics in how hypnosis works. It's just dissolving that belief filter and getting in the place where we can get the work done, where we can go back. We do, it's on my desktop and I never made it a slide. So you guys need to use your imaginations for this one.
Sure.
We use a lot of Gestalt work and past age regression, sometimes past life regression. I'm going to just speak to that just super fast, because there are lots of people that either believe in past lives or don't believe in past lives. And the bottom line is it doesn't actually matter. When you're in the chair for hypnosis, your subconscious might bring up a literal memory for a sensitizing event. But if the trauma is too great for you to look at face on, you'll create a story. It might be a dream. It might feel like a past life. And so you put yourself in this whole other world where it couldn't have actually hurt you. It was so far removed. Or some people will actually be on other planets. Or I had a client who was a mermaid. She saw herself as a past life as this mermaid creature that it was very interesting. The bottom line is it doesn't matter. Or entities, that's another thing. They'll feel possessed. And so this other person that's inside my mind, that's what happened to them. Wow. So it doesn't matter. What matters is the emotion. And I'm going to say that again, because this is key. This is key for everything, whether you're working with a coach or a hypnotist or a counselor or whatever. None of the circumstances matter. It doesn't matter whether it was a car accident or somebody punched you in the face, or whether your best friend stole your lollipop. It's just a circumstance. What matters is how you feel about it and what you made that mean about you.
Mm.
And that's where we get into the self-love, right?
Yes.
We have things. Okay, I'm going to go forward.
I wanted to say one thing, what you're talking about. And this might be new for some people. I'm not sure what the experience is of these things, but for me, it was brand new just a few years ago to even consider going into my memory or I maybe say it a different way, to try to remember certain events that happened. So what happened in your life the very first time you remember this thought coming to your mind? Like, how far can you go back in your memory? I've never even considered doing that until just a few years ago. And it was so interesting to me that I came up with a few, maybe a handful of experiences that I had. I would have never thought that I could have that ability to have such clear memory. Like I can tell stories. Mom, I remember when, in fact, I just told this the other day, I remember when I was 4 years old and I told her this story of what happened. I said, I don't know why I remember that. I don't know where it's coming from. And obviously just didn't, deep in my thoughts probably, or I just wonder if you can talk a little bit about that. It's just in our memory banks and somehow we might repress it, or it's just so interesting to me that I could come up with a story with detail of how I remember when I was 4 years old. My mom was sitting on her bed crying and I climbed up on her lap to comfort her, and she pushed me down onto the floor. No, well, she just had me get off her lap and go play. And that one experience affected me in many ways of I'm not good enough. And that was just so interesting to me that I could come up with that memory of how we remember these things and how, anyway. I don't know, I'm just kind of rambling.
Is it okay if I ask you what was going on in your life when that memory popped in?
I actually think it was, if I think about it, at the end of my marriage, or I was trying to save my marriage really. And it was when I was 3 years in, like the last 3 years of my marriage is when I was diving into these things and trying to do everything I can to understand myself and save this marriage. And that was one of the first things that they taught, is this stuff of these thoughts that we have. So I was trying to make my husband happy, I'm sure. And what can I do? And I was probably feeling,
you were feeling like he was pushing you away, just like mom did.
Yeah, or maybe yes, or I was feeling like I'm not good enough. I can't do this. I can't make my husband happy. So that might be where.
So that's exactly how it works. You have a situation come up in your life now, and then you go back and find, when did this first happen? And sometimes it is when it first happened. Sometimes it's when it was a larger,
most obvious or something.
Most obvious, and then we can pull it back. So you might have had something happen in high school that also made you feel that way, and then that will pull you back to when you were 4 years old and that first happened. And did you have a conversation with that little girl?
I did. Well, yes. Oh, actually I did. I was trying to remember that situation. Yes, I did.
And you had
yes.
you corrected her way of thinking, because it's so interesting that our finances, our love life, all of our relationships come from patterns that we learned before we were 10. And guys, we've seen children and how we can get confused. This is literal. When I was, I don't know, between 6 and 8, I would lay down on my pillow, and you know how you can hear your heartbeat if you lay real still? Yeah. I literally thought armies were marching around the neighborhood to make sure we were in bed.
Imagination, yes.
Right. And misconceptions, and it's okay, but we get things so confused as little kids. And so it is important that if it comes up, and sometimes we have dreams, we have memories, we have songs. My subconscious likes to speak through songs. I'll wake up with a song looping in my head until I stop and look at the lyrics and see how that correlates with something in my life. It's like giving me answers. It's like, hearing the spirit, if that works for you. So all of those things, and I don't remember.
That's why it makes sense. Yeah.
But that's how it works. I love this, and you posted on your thing. I love this quote from Alice Little. As traumatized children, we always dreamed that someone would come and save us. We never dreamed that, in fact, it would be ourselves as adults. You guys, we can time travel.
So good.
We really can. We cannot change the circumstances of our lives, but we can go back in time and we can literally change our feelings, our thoughts, our perspective, and it will go boom, 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 boom. All of the times that happens, it corrects, and all of the sudden, you just like, it's just gone. It doesn't matter. You guys, I had quite a bit of sexual abuse as a child and as a teenager, and it devastated me, and it really got in the way of my marriage. Go figure. And when I went in, I actually used EFT tapping, if anybody knows anything about that. It was mind-blowing that I could be in so much pain and then it's just gone. Like I remembered it, it just didn't matter. Oh, thanks, Coach Peggy. She's got to run.
Yeah.
And now I don't know how to get rid of that.
Oh.
But so absolutely, we have to be strong enough to save ourselves. And as long as we're pointing the finger at mom or dad or the abuser or the sister or anybody that's hurt us, we're not going to move forward until we say, okay, Ruthie, what were you thinking when you were 6 years old and this happened? How can I help you? How can I help you see it more clearly? What if, do you remember I love Mr. Rogers. Talked about in any big traumatic thing that's happening in our country, he would go back to what his mom always said, look for the helpers.
Yeah.
So what I find is very interesting. We can go back to a sensitizing event memory, but if we broaden our perspective in that moment, in that time in our life, we can always find the right answers, the way we could have thought about it, the person that was showing us the love, the person that was telling us we were enough. And we decided to look at that broken arm instead of all of the good.
Yes.
But as adults, we can decide to look at the good and implement that instead.
Yes.
Okay. Do you guys see my chat up?
No, we don't. We only see
good. You only see the thing. Okay, then I'm just going to leave it there because I
give you a warning. My daughter just walked in. She might not know that I'm on the call.
Okay, good. So the other thing I have here is the story of who I am is written by my own hand. So I want to ask who's writing your story, Sheri?
I love that. That's so good. I am writing my own story.
Your ex doesn't get to write your story.
No.
Your mom doesn't, your dad doesn't, your sister doesn't. You write your story unless you could turn the pen over to somebody else, but then we feel anxiety, we feel depression, we feel angst, we feel cognitive dissonance when somebody else is in charge of our story.
Yeah. So we can rip those up. Maybe we can decide what the stories were and rip them up and write a new story.
In fact, you can write down, who told me this? Where did it come from? Sometimes your hand knows before your brain knows. If you ask, that's why journaling is so helpful, just the mind dump. Okay. Oh, it's not going to let me. Okay. Okay. There. Oh, wait, go back. There we go. Okay. Now, on the topic of self-love, I want you guys to all look at this adorable little, at that time, 4-year-old. Don't you just love her? Her smile, her excitement. Look at, she's driving. It doesn't matter that it's sitting still in the grass. She is driving. She is, see the direction of her eyes. She's clear in her vision of where she's going. And you just love her, don't you?
Yes.
It's so easy to just love her. Okay, now I want you to close your eyes. And I want you to see Sheri or Rachel or Jen. I want you to go back in time to a place where you can see that little girl or that little boy was so worthy of love. Just feel it. And it's easy to give them love, isn't it? And you know, oh, and look, you get some extra love.
I just got home. Yeah.
Even though, oh, she can do this with us, even.
With us.
Even though that, however old you were at that time that you pictured, you might have been a baby. People who've had experienced a lot of pain and trauma, even as babies, they might need to go into utero. They might need to even go back before they decided to come to this planet. That soul, that essence is worthy of love, right? Would everyone agree?
Yes.
And that's easy. So easy. It goes in the subconscious. Of course, we love babies. We all love babies.
Yes.
It isn't until outside of us starts getting in. We have this beautiful core, and then we put mud on it, and we let other people put mud on it. Our siblings come in. We go to school. That's like the worst and best thing you can do to your children. People mudslinging all over the place. And all of a sudden you start questioning, well, maybe I don't deserve love. I made a mistake. I couldn't make mom happy. It must mean I'm wrong. I'm broken. I didn't do something right. That is one phrase that I actually don't love anymore, is choose the right. Because so many children get stuck and paralyzed at the thought that they did something wrong.
Yeah.
And that means I'm not worthy. And it doesn't. It doesn't at all. So, okay, close your eyes again. Okay, and that's everybody. Everybody listening, as long as you're not driving. Don't close your eyes if you're driving. Okay, we're going to take a couple deep, smooth belly breaths. Breathe deep into your stomach. That's going to activate that vagal nerve. That vagal nerve activates your relaxed state, your rest and digest, or parasympathetic system. That's where we want to be. That's where you want to be right now, is in that deep, relaxed, parasympathetic state where you can just absorb and feel. Now I want you to visualize that little bitty person that was you at one time. That little person that was so worthy of love. Not because they did anything great, but because they existed. I want you to feel the gratitude you have for that little being, for the excitement that you have to live here in this earth, in this body that's done so much good for you. Feel gratitude for the growth. Feel confidence for the path you will have to go through. Even knowing the pain you'll experience, even knowing the trauma, that little soul is still worthy. Now I want you to carry that forward. Hold on to that feeling of love and admiration and joy. And I want you to carry it forward all the way till this very moment. And I want you to hold it in your heart and just breathe into it. Breathe into that love. That person is still you. That's who you are at your very core, just a human soul worthy of every bit of love. You feel it? Good.
Yeah.
Good.
So good.
Everything else that attacks that feeling is just stuff. It's just stuff. Just like those arrows. Just like I talked about your leather top. You can bounce it out. Now, what I don't have time to get into is when you do make mistakes, because we all do, right? All the time. They say live without regrets. I have regrets. I wish I hadn't done things, but I learn from them. They don't hold me back anymore. I can live with the fact that I've been a big slime bag a lot of times. In fact, I did this process last night. I was having a really hard day, and I did a process I'm going to show you next. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. There's you, Sheri, and everybody else who's listening. You are the one in control. We already defined that, right? So you hold the pen. You are the one, you're the programmer. You're the master programmer. You decide what gets into your subconscious, what to pull out. So you can give your brain a directive. You can.
Yes.
The easiest time to do that is at night, right before that twilight, right before you drift off to sleep. And this is something that I do at the beginning of all of my classes. I just decided to give this to you anyway, because it's powerful. It's so simple and it's powerful. It's been fun, like, to follow my clients and see what they do with this one simple tool. So are you guys willing to do it?
Yes.
Okay. Before you go to bed, in the relaxed state, after you take a few deep breaths and you feel yourself sinking, you can feel when you're starting to go to sleep up, right? You drift off and then you shake and you're awake again. You're like, dang it, be still, body. That's just energy leaving. But anyway, so as you're drifting off, you loop a thought in your head. How many of us loop thoughts anyway? And sometimes they're not very nice. Even if you have to say, okay, yes, I hear you, and I'm going to put it on the shelf and I'll look at you tomorrow. But right now, I have a directive for my mind. For one of my clients, it was to wake up refreshed and active and full of energy at 5 a.m. And she did it, and she's been doing it every day since then. That was months ago. Wow. And other people, I actually did this one time. I love healthy food. I crave the things that are healthy for me. And amazingly enough, I was at the checkout where they have all of those temptations right at the checkout. And I saw Cheetos were my guilty pleasure. And I looked at them and thought, and immediately my brain thought, clementines. That's what we want. And so I left the line and I wanted to reward myself for doing it. And I went and got some clementines. So you have no idea how it will work, but you put that directive into your subconscious mind. If it's something you want to figure out or remember, I need to forgive. I want to forgive this person, forgive, and loop it. Forgive mom, I forgive mom, I forgive mom. Show me how. And that's the key. Show me how. And then you have a pad of paper by the bed and you keep notes, because you start having crazy dreams. Yeah. And you're like, what the heck does this mean? But then you sit still again. What could this mean? And you define it yourself, or you send me a Marco Polo and Renee, what does this mean? And we work through it together. It could be the day after. It could be 2 days after. And just in the middle of nowhere, you get the thought. But I promise you it happens and it works, because your subconscious mind knows everything that you need to do for healing, for moving forward, for staying safe. just like when you were ready, it was exposed to you that at 4 years old, you learned the story of I'm not good enough because I didn't make mom happy.
Our minds are so amazing.
They are. There's so much to share. And I just, now that I'm out of the big screen, I can see what time it is. And so I will leave with that. But if you want to learn more, on my birthday's Tuesday, and that's my welcome class for my new group of students, which starts on the 7th. But my welcome is for anybody that's still curious and wants to learn more and see if maybe I want to learn self-hypnosis, because there is so much more to it. It's like the law of attraction. Have you ever attracted something that you thought you wanted, and then when you got it, you're like, ew, I really don't want this?
Yes.
It happens. So we focus on getting clear on what's actually helpful for our progress, not just what we think we want. Because we think we want a big house and money and a hot guy or a hot girl. And that's not what it's about. It's about what we're feeling. It's all about the emotions, you guys. If you take anything away, you're worthy of love. You always have been. None of the rest matters. That's all just noise to make you believe otherwise. And 2, it's your emotions and feelings that you need to look at, not the circumstance.
Very good, Ruthie. Thank you so much. You have shared some amazing insights for us. I did want to share just quickly before we say goodbye, a post that I found on your page, the quantum filled trips. And then tell me, is that the best way for people to reach you? Is just the Quantum Filled Trips Facebook page that can message you?
Quantum Field Trips, you can totally message me. I do have a hypnotherapy and mind management free group that you can join, that still has some videos from over a year ago that are just like in my living room and not professional, but there you have really good content for free stuff. You can also, my regular profile is Ruthie Renee Rye, and any of those will work. RuthieRenee@gmail.com is my email. You're going to email me for more information, and let's just move forward.
Yes, I love this. I love what you share. And I wanted to share this. You said, I remember very vividly hoping and praying that someone would save me from the painful feelings and experiences in my childhood, young adulthood, and even a number of years into adulthood. I didn't feel like it was my fault. My depression, my anxiety, the circumstances that I felt were valid reasons for feeling the way I did. If I had the resources, I would have entered into a treatment facility where I felt like someone could fix me. I wanted someone to bail me out. I did see therapists, and you mentioned this. I read hundreds of self-help and psychology books. I went to seminars. I hired coaches. I eventually found my way to hypnotherapy. But somewhere along the line, I realized it was me. I had the power and strength to save me. I asked for help and advice and studied options that might help. Some did and some didn't. I made mistakes. There were times when I just stayed in bed and tried and prayed for someone to save me again, for God to take me home. Then I would start all over again. I practiced being happy before I was. I celebrated forward movement when I noticed it. I allowed myself to feel sad, angry, frustrated, and anything else, but at a time when I could keep it away from my family, like the shower or car. Then, little by little, the scales began to shift. Instead of feeling depressed or overwhelmed, or it's not fair the majority of the time, it shifted to joy and acceptance, grace and resilience most of the time. It was me that did it. Yes, I had help, but I sought it out. I decided I wanted to change. I was my own older and wiser rock of a person to carry me forward. For my religious friends, I know you're thinking only Christ can save, and you may be right. Still, he requires us to do the work of knocking, or of asking, of doing all we can, and then allowing God's healing power to take effect. So, my friend, if you're at rock bottom or the end of your rope, or just not where you want to be, and you wish someone could just give you a hand a handout and save you. Start with the one in the mirror. I just love that. It's so inspiring that we have all of these things that are holding us back. And like I said, it's so easy. I just can't say that enough, how it's we don't have to stay here. We don't have to stay in that feeling of hopelessness or helplessness, because God created us to be this way, to be able to make it through these things. So thank you. I really appreciate everything you've taught today. And if anyone has any questions, I didn't see any chats. I didn't see any questions in the Facebook, but I will forward them to you if anything pops up. And yeah, and then we'll stay in touch. Thank you, Ruthie.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, you guys.
You guys have a beautiful day.
You guys too. Bye.